Well, for level 1 candidates who are writing in May, we're getting close, so it's probably time to start thinking about the structure of the exam, what to expect on the exam, and how to best utilize the last run of days that you have left here. The exam window for level 1 is May 16th to May 24th, so the numbers I have here are all the way up to May 15th. If you're writing later, you can add the number of days on and adjust these numbers depending on when you're writing. 57 days to May 15th, less 28 for review. You got roughly about 29 days to sort of wrap things up. If you're writing all the way to the 24th, you can add 8 to that as well. I have been asked about center cancellations because we are seeing that some areas are going back in a lockdown for what they're calling a third wave, the more virile, I shouldn't say the more virile, the more transmissible, the more contagious variant of the virus seems to be hitting, and it spreads a lot faster. So we are seeing some places going back in a lockdown. It's early days still. When I say early days, I mean, sure, we got 57 days to go, but, is it possible that there will be center cancellations? Yeah. But the cancellations will be center by center. It will be Prometrics that will be saying, look, we simply can't hold it here, or they can hold it there. So I wouldn't look to CFAI to make any blanket statement announcements about what's being canceled and what isn't. I think it's going to be on a center-by-center basis, and if you are affected, I'm sure you will get a communication directly from CFAI without them making a big announcement. So I wouldn't look for any big announcement. That doesn't mean that situation or the circumstance won't change where it necessitates such, but I wouldn't look for it. I think you look to each of your testing centers to determine whether or not it'll be canceled. And from what I understand, they've been already sending out notices of exam dates being changed. We have an employee, an analyst that we've hired. His level 3 exam was on a Monday, and he got a notice that it's been bumped to the Friday before the Monday. So he's got to write 3 days earlier, which he's more than fine to do. But I have heard of other candidates also getting center, not cancellations, but just being moved around. So yeah, that is a possibility still. I can't really say much about that. It's just one of those things that is unknown until it's known. Let's look at the structure of the exam that you'll be facing. There are 2 sessions, right? There's the AM and the PM. So I've got the 2 sections for the AM up here and for the PM. And the AM is broken down into 2 sections. You'll have ethics, and you'll have all the ethics questions all at once, followed by quant, economics, and FRA, and these will be randomized. So it's not as if you're going to get all the quant questions and all the economics. You'll get all these 3 randomized. These are the weights of the exams, and this is the range of questions those weights represent. So the AM is worth 90 points. The section 2 will be anywhere from 54 to 63 points. So if you get in there and you see that you have 36 ethics questions, you're going to have these low end on the lower end of the other 3 types of questions, and then as there are fewer than 36, they'll be these will move towards the heavier weights. We don't know how many questions there are because there's a range this year, so all we can do is work within the range, right? For the PM exam, session 1 will be corporate finance and portfolio management, anywhere from 24 to 36 questions there. And then you'll end with all the asset classes, equity, fixed income, derivatives, and alternative investments, anywhere from 54 to 66, again, depending on what session 1 looks like. I think if we aim for the middle of the spread on all of these, I think that's probably about right. If you pay attention to derivatives and alternative investments, there's only 3 readings on these 2 sections, but they'll make up anywhere from 18 to 30 of the questions. And again, splitting the middle, you get to 24. It makes up 24 out of the 180 questions just from 3 readings. So those are high yield readings. And again, the PM makes up 90. So you can see where the weightings are. Some sections have a lot of readings, like FRA I think has 12 readings. It's 13 to 17%. So when you think about 12 readings and there's 24 to 31 questions. Let's say it's 27. That's about 2 to 2.5 questions per reading. And some of these readings had 8, 9, 10 LOSs, and this is saying that, look, I'm only going to get 2 questions from that one reading. Yeah, that's the way it works. So you don't know what LOS is going to be tested. CFAI says everything is fair game. If it's in an LOS, it's fair game. It'll be randomized, which means you're not going to know which LOSs are being tested or, what questions you're going to get. So it's one of those things where, well, if you're only going to ask me 3 things out of 10 possible things and I don't know what those 3 things are, I pretty much got to know all 10 things going in. Yeah, that's the deal there. Let's say that, basically from where you're sitting right now, knowing your life, knowing the obligations that you have to live up to, knowing that you work, knowing that you have family, knowing all these things, you say, look, I'm not going to be ready. I know that right now. Many of you are going to be ready, but some of you are, pretty much know based on what you have ahead of you for the next 60 days, whether you're going to be ready or not. And you may have already concluded, look, I'm not going to be ready. I'm just going to skip this one. I would urge you to sort of scale down your expectation of the exam and write it anyways. So there's no downside to writing. Once you get the charter, it doesn't say you took 19 attempts at 3 exams to get it. Nobody knows any different. Your 3 letters are exactly the same as anybody else's 3 letters. So there is no strike against you for writing and not passing. You're going to lose the exam registration fee you paid anyways. You're going to be giving that up. And since you've already paid, you may as well go and think of this as a reconnaissance mission. Let me go look at the exam. Let me go look at the types of questions that are being asked. Let me go experience the test center day so I know what to expect next time. And who knows? You just might make it. You might think you're very far away, but you just might make it. What I would suggest is focus on 2 or 3 sections. Let's find out how, what your potential is on the whole exam by saying, look, I'm going to do 2 or 3 sections as if the exam is only on those 2 or 3 sections. Make it more manageable on yourself. If you're already writing off the exam saying, look, I'm not going to pass it, I'm just going to write it off, you're not going to show up, you're not going to get an E mark. So you may as well just make it the exam you want to write. Say, look, for me, this is going to be a quant and FRA exam. That's it. Well, go in and write quant and FRA. You've already committed to the outcome that you're not going to make it. So when you don't make it, no big deal. But have a look at what you did with quant and FRA. You want to slam those. You want to knock those out of the park. When you get your results back, there's still victory in defeat. When you look at those 2 sections and you see that you're in the top 10 percentile or that you are way above the minimum passing score for those sections, then you could say, yeah, I can do it. I just didn't have the time. I had too many commitments. Things came up, but clearly I've proven that I can do this. So go in and just write the exam you want to write. There is no downside, and you're giving up a whole bunch of valuable information by not going in and seeing the exam. You get to see the exam and experience the exam center. You're going to lose the exam fee anyway, showing up or not showing up. And if you have a subscription on our site, you actually have to write and not pass if you want the 1 fee to pass option, because all of our subscriptions now are 1 fee to pass. But you actually have to write. You can't just sign up and say, well, I'm never going to write and just keep carrying me for years and years. It doesn't work that way. We guarantee you access to the content until you pass, but you must show that that you wrote. So there is no downside to writing. There's only upside. And I don't know why you'd give that up after paying for it. Let's look at some review strategies on the next screen. All right, I've got 4 different strategies here, with 3 of them being more effective strategies. Number 1 is mock exams. You're going to do some mock exams, but over the years in looking at the mock exams, I've come to sort of, I'm on the fence on these. I don't know that they're as effective as everyone sort of believes that they are. There's an expression, in the review period, mock till you drop. I don't know that that's actually very effective. It would be like weighing yourself 3 times a day, expecting there to be a change. That once you do enough mock exams and you see your score is not moving, weighing yourself again, and that's what a test is. It's weighing your knowledge. Weighing yourself again, I don't know that it changes very much. It's more of a benchmarking tool. It's not a very effective learning or internalization tool. It's more of a benchmarking tool to see where you stand against, a measure of 100%. And of course, the measurement is relative. It's relative based on whose exam you're writing. Some are easy, some are hard, some are full of mistakes and errors. So I would sort of look at mock exams as a benchmarking tool, and you're going to want to do some mock exams to see where you are, to get a good idea of where you are. But nobody knows what the real exam is going to be like. CFAI is extremely secretive on the level of difficulty of the questions, the breakdown of the questions. Nobody knows, and I think there's even only a few people within the CFAI that actually know the types of questions and the structure of the exam in terms of how many from this reading, how many from that reading. So to say, our exams are very close to the real exam, nobody knows that. All you can say is, look, based on my knowledge of assessment, if I were going to test you on this LOS, here is what I would consider an easy test. Here's a medium test. Here's a hard test. You can identify a question as being easy or hard based on the knowledge, but you have no idea how they align with what you're going to actually experience. So, I would beware the taglines from suppliers that say ours are as close to the exam as possible. No one knows that. It's just more of a marketing thing. However, there is some value in assessing yourself against a number of different types of authors who write questions. So, CFAI does provide you with 3 half exams. Now, I don't know if they're still on PDF. I don't know if they're still in the old format with 180 questions as opposed to 135. And it really doesn't matter. A question is a question. Does it have to be 90 questions or can it be 120 questions? I said 180, I meant 120. What if it is 120? Well, it's just a little bit longer. But it's still a valid benchmarking tool. It's still a valid way to measure your knowledge of the content. We have 3 full exams, which means that 6 half exams. They're all computer based, so you do actually take them as you would take the real exam. The interface mimics what you're going to experience. Are our questions close to what you'll experience on the exam? I don't know. Nobody knows. So all you can do is write a variety of questions. Look, here's some easy ones, here's some medium ones, here's some hard ones. Across this and across a number of different exams, we should be fairly close to what the population mean might be. A little level 1 quant there. The population mean being what the difficulty level on the real exam would be. Ours are 90 questions per half exam as opposed to the 120. I don't think the ones provided to you by CFAI have been modified for computer-based testing. I think there's still 120 questions and paper-based. I think. I don't know. If anybody knows, just go ahead and leave a comment down so that everybody else knows. I can't answer that question. They don't let me see that kind of stuff. Beyond mock exams, and again, as a benchmarking tool, I think they're effective, but you got to take them with a grain of salt. You may write mock exams from one supplier and score in the 90s, and you may move to another supplier and score in the 50s. That's just the nature of the mock exam industry. Without CFAI providing us with a template about what the exam structure is like, we're all left sort of just guessing, and the more experience you've had with assessment, the better you are at writing questions that reflect a range of possibility. And that's all any mock exam can give you, is a range of possibility. So I would sort of lean towards the CFAI mock exams probably being more representative, not exactly, but more so than other providers, including mine. What is most effective for learning and internalizing in these last few days? If mock exams are for benchmarking, how do I improve my knowledge as opposed to continually test the same level of knowledge? Narrating is extremely powerful. You can look at a set of notes and you can read the notes to yourself. It's not the same as narrating those notes as if somebody was sitting across from you and you're explaining the notes to them. You're narrating them. So if you have our review PDFs, you can listen to the review videos and follow along, or you can hit pause on the review videos and narrate them yourself. You can create your own audio files that you can listen to. That's a very powerful tool, because when you start trying to explain it, that's when you start to see where the holes are in your knowledge, because you can't move from one bullet point to the next bullet point because you find yourself stumbling, saying, hey, hang on a second, how do I fill that hole? I'm missing some information in here. And narrating doesn't mean reading. If you're just going to read the words on the page, well, what's the point? You may as well just read them to yourself. Narrating means you're actually talking around the words. You're improvising around the notes. The same with the LOS. If you don't have any of our content and you're just relying on self-study, which many do, go to the learning objective statements right at the beginning of the reading. LOSA, describe blah, 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 blah. Well, do it. Narrate it. In 3 or 4 minutes, imagine somebody sitting across the table from you and explain to them what that LOS is doing. Keyword is describe, so describe it. If the next word is calculate and interpret, write down the formula. Well, here's the formula, and here's how you would calculate it. We're going to need this variable, and this variable. Here's the answer. Here's what this answer means. Number 3, teaching or mentoring or tutoring, they're all along the same lines. Mentoring means, you're going to go online, and there are a couple of forums full of CFA candidates. If you're on our site, there are numerous comments under videos, under questions. You can chime in. You can answer somebody else's question. Somebody says, I don't get this. Well, go ahead, step in. That is all part of building a skill set called mentoring. That if you can, spend the time and invest the time in your colleagues and help them along as well, well, that's a skill set. That's a definite skill set that leads to management positions, the ability to mentor, because as a manager at any position, you're going to have to mentor those below you. Because if you can't train your own replacement, then you're not promotable. In reading examples. Let's not bypass these, the in-reading examples. These are high probability topics. So in each reading, if you're saying, well, what's more high probability to be asked? Chances are the LOSs that have 1, 2, or 3 examples associated with it is probably more high probability. And there are about 10 to 20 in-reading examples per reading. These are the ones you get to, which look like a box, and it'll say example 1, and it'll give a title of the example, and off you go, and it'll ask a couple of questions, right? And don't just work the example or remember the steps. Oftentimes, I hear, well, I've been through all those examples before, and I find myself going through them again, and I remember what the answers are. So I don't know how effective that is. Well, then just ignore it. Imagine there's somebody sitting right beside you repeatedly saying, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. So now you're not just remembering the answer. You must now explain it to somebody else who doesn't get it, why it's the answer. It's not the same as remembering. You may go through a process and say, I know this is 8.2. Well, explain it to me. Why is it 8.2? I don't get it. All of these things, especially when you start narrating to somebody else, the in-reading examples for the high probability topics, teaching, mentoring, tutoring someone, actually having to write down the answer for another question, an unstructured question, and narrating, whether it be the reviews or the LOSs, this is extremely powerful because you're actually using your voice now. It's not just, your eyes reading words without putting a lot of meaning behind it, because I can read a sentence sometimes on autopilot. I mean, how many times have you read a paragraph and you get to the end of the paragraph and you think, what did I just read? Because you're reading on autopilot. I mean, your eyes are passing over the words, sure, but are they actually reading what's there? But when you have to stop and you have to narrate that paragraph in your own words, okay, what does that paragraph say? Just give me 2 or 3 sentences. Give me the highlights. Well, now you got to go back. Now you got to make sure you read it, and now you're putting it in your own words. You're more likely to remember the story you tell than the story that's written on the pages. Well, there we go.